Well, how is everybody's Wednesday going? Halfway through this week. We got it, everybody. May not feel like it, but we got it. We will figure it out. Sorry I'm late today. Lots of interesting stuff has happened in the last 24 hours. I guess happy Earth Day to those who celebrate. I often think the best way to take care of the earth is to just pick up your own trash. So I do that every day, but I guess every day is Earth Day for me. Every day is Earth Day. Let's see, we'll just hop right into it. But yeah, happy Earth Day. Pick up your own trash. Don't be lazy. It's disgusting. We don't have to live this way, everybody. I sincerely don't. But yeah, make sure before we start, everybody's dropping a like, subscribing on YouTube, following on Rumble, following on Kick. But yeah, sharing the stream, sharing the episode. Today should be a pretty fun one. But the big news today, I guess in the last 24 hours, is that the FBI claims that the Southern Poverty Law Center funded white supremacist and nationalist organizations. These organizations and events include the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. They did this supervising racist social media posts and coordinating transportation to the event, later resulting in the death of Heather Heyer. Which, yeah, some of these instances include paying the leader of the National Alliance, a neo-Nazi group, more than $1 million between the years 2014 and 2023, paying the Imperial Wizard of the United Klans of America, paying an officer of the Nationalist Socialist Movement. Back in the 1940s, National Socialism was known as Nazis in Germany. They paid the officer more than $300,000 between the years 2014 and 2020. They solicited donations on the site. This was on a web page called the Extremists file, with individuals on the web page actually being on the payroll of the Southern Poverty Law Center. These include the former chairman of the National Alliance, who is featured on the web page, receiving over $140,000 between the years 2016 and 2030. These are all in the indictment. This is crazy. The leader of the American Nazi Party was featured on this Extremist file webpage as well, while receiving over $70,000 between the years 2014 and 2016. The national president of the American Front was paid over $19,000 between 2016 and 2019. And was at the time a convicted felon for his participation at a cross burning. And then a former Ku Klux Klan member, KKK, received over $35,000 as they were in litigation attempting to adopt a highway in the name of the KKK. Yeah, rather groundbreaking. I always had wondered how these people made money, how they were able to get to these events, because they were obviously unemployed. I find it hard to believe you get days off to go to the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. There's not many employers that would allow you to take those days off in the first place, and then in the case that you do show up, I don't think you would be employed any longer. So it always confused me how these people showed up in their uniforms, how they were able to get there, how they were able to get time off from work. Well, it turns out this was their job, and they were being paid by the Southern Poverty Law Center to create a problem that did not exist before they put funding into it so they could receive funding. As a result of this, a year before Charlottesville, the revenue of the Southern Poverty Law Center was at $51,871,438. A few months after the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, they would receive $133 million, or $133,463,398 in revenue, marking an $81,591,960 increase in revenue after this Unite the Right rally. This was reported, I believe, by Fox News, these numbers. So in order to get funding, they decided to create a problem that never would have existed without them funding the problem. The best analogy I can make to this, the Southern Poverty Law Center funding white supremacist organizations' activities, the closest thing I can think of is if your fire department was going to get funding cut back and they started hiring people to go out and create fires so it looked like they needed more money. We have a justice organization of some sort, allegedly a justice organization, who is funding extremist activities, funding, white supremacist ideologies, organizations, which later result in deaths of American citizens, and they do this to increase their bottom line, which is abhorrently evil. The problem never existed, and hence why you have to fund it so you can cash in on your donors, because you need to have a problem in order for something like the Southern Poverty Law Center to exist. You need people to perceive a problem in inequality or injustice. And how do you get people to perceive a problem? Well, you go and fund the problem using previous donations to get more donations from people. Lock them all up. Throw them all in jail. Apparently they're pretty good lawyers, so maybe they can fight their own cases, but throw them all in jail. And also, I'd like to see them move on from this, not in the sense of the case. They need to secure this case, but there's a few more organizations that the FBI should look into. Number one, the ADL, then maybe the NAACP, maybe the Human Rights Campaign. All of these need to be looked through just like this, because I have a hunch that the hate in this country is unnatural, especially when you see that the Southern Poverty Law Center is funding hate. I don't understand how they were able to do this for so long. First instance of funding of these groups is in 2014. But they were able to do it through what looks to be 2023. I can't imagine that there aren't other of these organizations doing the same thing. I don't see all of these protesters. I don't think anybody sees all these protesters, counter-protesters as natural occurrences. I went to one No Kings protest, and nothing about it felt organic. It felt staged. Everybody there was just hateful. There wasn't any reason for doing it. They didn't have a unified message. They just hated Donald Trump, so they showed up. And then there were other people. I mean, they're organizing it. The ones who are sponsored by the Socialists of America, Communists of America, selling t-shirts for profit. I thought that one was kind of funny. But no, nothing about these protests are organic, whether it be the No Kings, the Unite the Right, even January 6th. None of these are organic yet. We're being sold that this is like, these are organic protests and these are freedom fighter socialists versus Nazis. And then you find out that the freedom fighter socialists are the ones funding the Nazis to be there to get this violent interaction that has cost lives, such as Heather Heyer in Charlottesville. Now, will we see the Southern Poverty Law Center charged with accessory to murder? Probably not. Should we? Likely. I believe they should be held accountable for her death, because they're the ones funding the people to be there in the first place. This Unite the Right thing in Charlottesville was not organic, and it's proven so by people being funded to be there, by them paying for the transit of these people to get to Charlottesville. It's not an easy town to get to. I've been there once before. It's not too easy to get to. They had to somehow get all these people there, and then when they get there, somebody dies, and it gets put on the extremist groups that are funded by the socialist freedom fighters. I don't know. I hope that somehow the Justice Department's successful once in this term, maybe in my lifetime, but in this term at least, that they can get prosecutions on this, put these people in jail. I'd like to see them charged for accessory to murder as well, but I don't think they're willing to go that far. But you need to also investigate the ADL, Anti-Defamation League, NAACP, Human Rights Campaign. I feel like there's probably something more there. It's just a hunch. I don't know that would be true, but it needs to be investigated at this point, because these organizations get a lot of funding, and it seems that they're capitalizing off of these events, which they are using their money to stage. It feels wrong. It feels wrong, and it seems that it should be investigated. Rather, will we see the ADL and NAACP Human Rights Campaign investigated? I'd give it a less than 50% chance on all of them. Lesser so for some than others, but it needs to happen. It needs to happen at this point. These are, the dark money organizations funding the downfall of America that Pam Bondi was going to go after, and then she never got Indivisible. She never got the Soros Foundation. She never got, the Pink Project, Project Pink. Nobody. And we see what they do now. They fund white nationalism and Nazis to the tune of millions of dollars. But we'll move on. I guess the Federal Bureau of Intoxication, they must have walked into this one, like complete accident, but hopefully something will come of it. Swift justice. But let's move on to other news. So, yesterday, Virginia voted in favor of redistricting, successfully creating the most gerrymandered state in the Union. Out of all 50, Virginia is now the most gerrymandered. congratulations, Virginia, on that. I always heard gerrymandering was racist, but it is unless the Democrats do it, of course. I guess lots of Virginia news today. Charlottesville, Virginia gerrymandering itself to the point that its electoral college votes shouldn't count anymore, but that's here nor there. So I'll read you the way this question is framed, this amendment to the Virginia State Constitution. It reads, question, should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections while ensuring Virginia's standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after the 2030 census? I think it's kind of crazy that they say it's to restore fairness. Virginia went from a 6-5 Democrat majority in representation to a projected 10-1 Democrat majority in a state that voted only 5% more in favor for Kamala Harris than Donald Trump. But this vote goes through at a 51.5% to 48.5% vote. Nowhere near the 10-1 result that this would end up being in the next election, at least from projections. 51.5% in no world is 10 times more than 48.5. This is nowhere near what the voters, the consensus of voters is. This is what the Democrats want. And it had an overwhelming majority of counties voting no. There were the major population centers that vote yes because it's going to benefit them and their liberal agenda. But the vast majority of, I guess I'll just say the countryside, voted no. The same people that this redistricting, gerrymandering change is going to disenfranchise as voters are the ones voting no. And the people who want more power want to disenfranchise the people who live outside of the city centers, mostly conservatives in rural areas. They want to disenfranchise them as voters. The same thing they hate, they are, but I think that's just a normal thing in America these days. Say, oh, you're going to disenfranchise voters, and then go to the poll yesterday and decide to disenfranchise half the state. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the thought process behind this idea was. I guess it's to seek retribution against President Trump by or through disenfranchising rural voters. I think the people in rural Virginia have been disenfranchised enough. I don't know if any of you have ever driven through Southwest Virginia. I think they've been disenfranchised enough. I mean, it's a different world over there than it is in Richmond, and it's a world that the people in Richmond would never subject themselves to. But yeah, that's who it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt the people in the countryside. Who's it going to help? The rich people in the city, just as the Democrats love. I don't get it. Just evil people. Evil people. But in the wake of this, afterwards, the current governor of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, announced that a full 50-state redistricting plan if Democrats are to successfully take the House of Representatives next election cycle. This would include reforms and changes to the redistricting process involving all 50 states, meaning they want to turn every state into a new Virginia where they disenfranchise rural voters and prop up these gerrymandered maps that benefit Democrats. This has been announced already. I mean, they're putting it out in the open, and we refuse to listen. As Republicans, they tell you what they're going to do. They're going to do it. And we choose to sit there and say, oh, there's no way they'd do that. And then in 2 years, what are we going to have? We're going to have redistricted, gerrymandered states that will only favor Democrats. Because we refuse to, I guess, listen with our ears. But Donald Trump, actually, President Trump, has a response on the place where you go to get all of your news on America, the number one stop for news from the president. He says a rigged election took place last night in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. All day long, Republicans were winning. The spirit was unbelievable until the very end when, of course, there was a massive mail-in ballot drop. Where have I heard that before? I've heard that one before too, President. And the Democrats eked out another crooked victory. 6-5 goes to 10-1, and yet the presidential election in November was very close to a 50-50 split. In addition to everything else, the language on the referendum was purposefully unintelligible and deceptive. As everyone knows, I am an extremely brilliant person, and even I had no idea what the hell they were talking about in the referendum, and neither did they. Let's see if the courts will fix this travesty of quote-unquote justice. President Donald J. Trump. Well, it sounds like he has the same opinion of it as me. They're using this as a short-term measure to disenfranchise Republicans during the last years of President Trump's election. I guess it just is what it is. They tell us what they're going to do, we don't listen, and we pay the consequences every single time. I mean, if only Republicans would just listen. Because sometimes people will tell you the truth, and you'll be like, oh, that'd never be the truth. But it's exactly what they're about to do. So I hope you guys will listen. You need to get out and vote in these primaries. Probably get rid of all the incumbents. I'm not going to lie. There's like 3 good ones. Actually, probably less than that. Out of all 535 members of Congress, there's like 3 good ones. Probably less. I can name 2 right now. I can't even think of a third. Get out and primary them. Show up to your primaries. Show up to your general elections. And maybe we can have some political agenda that will help us as American citizens, as opposed to whatever this mess is going on in Virginia, whatever this mess is going on currently in Congress, because it's going to result in a Democrat landslide, just like Abigail Spanberger once. And then after that, well, President Trump's not going to get any bills that he wants across, and the Democrats will be jamming through these these bills to gerrymander all 50 states. And then when they're not doing that, they're just going to be trying to, oust President Trump, trying to impeach him. It's going to be gerrymandering bills and impeachments, and that's all we're going to see for 2 years. So get out and do something this election season. They say the last one was the most important. I think this one's going to be more important, just because we got nothing we wanted from the last one. We have received nothing we voted for. There were no mass deportations. There has been no economic revival. The gas prices are not cheap. There was a new war. It's like the opposite of what I voted for. But I don't know. Maybe that's just what voting in America gets you. I've got no idea at this point. Oh, sorry about that. So in other news, the U.S. government the U.S. government may be bailing out Spirit Airlines to the tune of $500 million and could take ownership of up to 90% of the company as Spirit files for bankruptcy. There's been people with all kinds of ideas. My favorite one has been to turn them into deportation flights. I counter that with all Spirit flights should have been deportation flights anyways. I don't know how many of you have ever subjected yourself to riding on a Spirit airline. We shouldn't even tell people. They just buy a Spirit ticket. You know, it says you're going to end up in Fort Lauderdale, but instead they just drop you off on a remote island because you are a Spirit customer. I mean, Spirit's awful. You go on there, there's like 48 crying babies. The parents are doing nothing for their children. They want to charge you for drinks and snacks on flights that nobody else would charge you for on. The place always smells like somebody is carrying a pound of marijuana on them. I mean, this is what Spirit is. This is the experience. I think we should just not even tell anybody and just turn regular Spirit customers into deportation flights and just send them to a remote island and just with their baggage, everything, just drop them off there, take off, come back, load up the next one. I mean, why would we own any share of Spirit Airlines? Just let them fail. They're awful. We don't have the money to bail them out anyways. Do we think they're ever going to turn a profit? Probably not. But I think the second best option is obviously going to be turn them into surprise deportation flights. Like find an island. I guess Australia's already been taken by the British, but just send them there and just let them like rule over their ashes of being a Spirit customer. I think that's the only option, like a Australia-style penal colony for all Spirit customers. And we can throw on deportation flights as well if their country of origin isn't accepting returns, repatriations. I think this is the best idea for what can be done with Spirit. Fly everybody that's ever taken a Spirit, including myself, honestly. Just send me with them. And we will have Spirit Island. I mean, Spirit is terrible. It's not worth $500 million. You'll never make a profit. That is $500 million down the drain for 90% of a company that 100% of the experience is miserable. The employees are miserable. It may be a better experience if they just crash the plane than those people trying to land them. I mean, it feels like you're in a helicopter crash every time they touch down. I mean, I don't know if there's any saving them. I don't know if the Secretary of Transportation can do anything to save that company. I mean, it is just objectively a terrible experience every single time. And no money you put into it is going to fix that. It's just a broken idea, a broken company. But yeah, that's my idea for what to do with Spirit. Just surprise deportation flights and surprise deportations. Just any Spirit customer, I don't care, you're going to the island. You're going to Spirit Island, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're already on the plane. That's the best case scenario with what to do with that. But we'll move on from Spirit. I just had to throw that in there because I don't know if anybody else has been on one of those. It is the worst experience of an airline you will ever have. Just terrible. Let them fail. They don't know what they're doing with their money. The flight attendants don't even know what they're doing on the plane. The customers don't know how they got on the plane. They're so high. I mean, let them fail. It's a failed company. But we'll move on. Sorry, Spirit, I love you. Sponsor me. If you give me enough money, I'll give you a better review. But until then, that's my testimony on Spirit. All right. So President Trump has given Iran a Saturday deadline to come forward with a unified proposal to end the U.S.-Iran war. I guess this is big news if you have faith in this process anymore, but I see Saturday coming and give them another extension and prolong this, what I think will stack up to be some weird Cold War with Iran, where we're like looking off the coast to see if they're developing nuclear weapons and missiles, and we're trying to blockade ships and just wasting our money and time. But because nobody's going to come to a deal. Everybody's still too far apart. But there's now a Saturday deadline. We will have a Taco Saturday, 2 taco days this week. I guess if we had ground beef yesterday, we will have chicken on Saturday. I hope you all enjoy your tacos, because I think we'll just continue to extend this to a point where everybody's like, well, we don't want to go back to fighting, but we also will never reach an agreement. So we'll just wait each other out here in the Strait of Hormuz and hope everybody just, has a fun time. We'll just look at each other funny. And then maybe one day one of the countries will collapse, just like the USSR. And then somebody will take the position of victory from there. But until then, I think this is how this is going to go. I think we'll have a few more of these pushing back the dates, and then eventually we'll just never talk about it again and act like everything's fine and dandy as we stare at each other across the Strait of Hormuz. It's kind of like a cute love story. Do you think Trump loves the Ayatollah, the new one? Maybe. I don't know. We'll move on. There's also other news regarding the war, mainly the financial side. Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, testified on Capitol Hill. He says that many Gulf countries and some Asian allies have requested swap lines to exchange U.S. currency in the fallout of this Iran war. Great. We're paying the other countries too now. It's like I said, a little over a year ago, Trump goes over there and he gets $1 trillion from one country, $2 trillion from another, $600 billion from another, and then now we're paying them back. It makes that whole great Middle East vacation he did, where he brings back over $2 trillion, worthless now, in all reality. Especially when we're paying back the same money that was supposed to be somehow invested. I was hoping it would be in infrastructure and what am I thinking? Investment in infrastructure, investment in manufacturing, that's the one. But we didn't really get it, unfortunately. I don't know where that money went. I don't know that anybody does. It didn't go into the national debt. I don't know what it went into. If anybody can clarify where that couple $1 trillion went, the American public would like to know. Me being the American public. We'll move on. It sounds like we're going to open swap lines to further inflate the U.S. dollar, which is going to be glorious. I'm sure that's what we all wanted out of this war, is to be much more poor. Very successful. They used to fight wars to get rich, and now we just fight them to like live in poverty and squalor. That's kind of neat, isn't it? That's kind of neat. I used to like, to the victor go the riches or whatever, and now it's like to everybody live in poverty and enjoy it, and your gas is $4 and you suck, and it's like, this is stellar. I don't know, we'll move on. So we have an update on Ilhan Omar. We reported months ago that she was involved in some wine company. I always thought it was strange, her being Muslim and having a wine company. Could she ever taste the product? Like, did she know what she was selling? Well, I don't know that she was ever selling anything. Just 9 days after Ilhan Omar's amended financial disclosure was filed, that wiped out millions of her net worth, her winery was dissolved as an LLC in California, meaning it no longer exists, where a lot of this money was allegedly coming from. The winery that I don't know that she could ever try the product from, but that's here nor there. Maybe it was really good just because she owned it or like got to smell it once or twice. I don't know. But no, the company's gone. Millions are wiped out. And we're starting to see how the fraud in Minnesota was making these politicians so rich. The fraud that they were probably going to expand to all facets of the American government if Kamala Harris and Vice President, current governor of Minnesota, the one who's resigning due to all this fraud, where they were going to export that to all 50 states and just standardize fraud and sending money to Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist organizations across the world. I don't know. We're really good at figuring out ways to send money to the terrorists, but we never seem to address that problem here in America, whether it be in Afghanistan or Somalia, the Middle East in general, Africa. We're really good at finding ways to send them money. Have been for a long time. Hamas, actually, we had Israel have the UAE do that in suitcases, but nevertheless, we fund them, so somehow we're probably still funding it, because that's a great American pastime. I don't know. We got to stop the fraud and abuse in the government. Then we do have a little bit of good news today. It's been reported that Anheuser-Busch is going to invest $600 million into U.S. production, hopefully creating tons of jobs here in America. They reportedly believe that there will be a boom for Americans in, I guess, the beer sector, alcohol sector. I guess when Ilhan Omar's winery dissolved, there is now a greater demand. So, yeah, Anheuser-Busch investing $600 million into America. Shout out to those guys. We need the jobs these days. Wow. Crazy stuff is going on in the Kick chat. I don't know what any of that means. I hope you're having a good time. The three of you. Craziness. But yeah, it's good to see some investment back in the American workforce. We truly need it. Hopefully this isn't going into AI development to replace brewers, to replace the people who do all the stuff at the brewery, quality checks, all the sorts. But at least on the surface, this looks promising, as they are already a huge employer here in the United States. I believe the largest brewery or brewing employer in the world, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully this will give us a few more jobs here. Hopefully well-paying. Build back that middle class that we are losing day after day, who fill roles like this. So yeah. Shout out to Anheuser-Busch. Maybe it's time to stop the boycott on Bud Light if this actually gives Americans jobs. We might be able to finally forgive you for being woke. Maybe. If there's enough jobs. So yeah. That's basically all the news we've got for today. Let me check and see if I missed anything. In the meantime, make sure you guys are dropping a like on the show, YouTube or Rumble, subscribing on YouTube, following on Rumble and Kick, turning on notifications so you can get notified when the show goes live. I was a little late today. That's my bad. I kind of want to do a deep dive into who the people that run the Southern Poverty Law Center are, because I feel like that's going to be an interesting rabbit hole as well. The people who are funding these hate organizations. Like to know who these people are. I think that's basically everything, unless something has popped up in the last hour. Make sure you guys are subscribing, following. Follow on all platforms. I don't have a favorite, but I may or may not have a favorite. There's also another UFO person that has died in recent days. I believe this is now 11. I meant to look into this today, but I could only find a couple of things. But in one of his last shows, the last segment, he prays. I believe it was his last show. He prays with his chat, and then is found and having a good time interacting with them. But then he's found dead from an apparent suicide. Gets instantly ruled a suicide, but that happens often here in the U.S. in these likely homicide cases. But yeah, another weird instance regarding this UFO science stuff. I mean, I don't know what to make of it. Are they trying to keep the secret in that these are just all government projects? The aliens were never there. It's a psyop. Is that what this is about? And these people may or may not have the information that would expose that. It's a method of control, keep you afraid of. These aliens that are going to come. These impending alien invasion, which is going to be the FBI and CIA dressed up in green suits with blow-up heads. I don't know. It's a UFO researcher, independent researcher, not like at Area 51, Area 52, if that answers your question. It's a dude who does, I believe, a similar format podcast to me, from my understanding. But he's found dead in an apparent suicide, instantly ruled a suicide. It gives a little bit of homicide vibes to me, especially given the pattern we've seen with all these people in similar spaces, defense contractors, actual hands-on researchers just disappearing, apparently walking off into the woods to never be found again. After, of course, they clear their phone out. I don't know. It's fishy. It's really fishy. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll look into that a little bit more tomorrow if it's a slow day. But I figured I'd bring that up. there's a pattern forming here, and a lot of people are just dying or disappearing. You say, I bet the SPLC pays big salaries. They pay big salaries to the Klan, so I bet the people who actually work there are loaded. $1 million over 10 years to the leader of the National Alliance. That's a pretty big salary, in my opinion. If I got $100,000 a year, I would be happy. Not to do what he did, because I find it objectionable and evil. But $100,000 a year isn't a bad payout, and you could probably use that to fund the uniforms for the uniforms that everybody shows up in, and the U-Hauls and that kind of stuff that we've all seen and we're supposed to just believe is organic. Yeah, it's not organic. It's not. It's all manufactured hate to make somebody the enemy. And we don't wake up to it ever. I hope this is the beginning of when people can start waking up to my opinion, racism doesn't exist anymore. I mean, maybe it does for some people with lots of hate in their heart, but the stigma, all white men are racist, white people are racist, there's no merit to that whatsoever. Especially when they're paid by people to do these actions that they probably would never be able to do on their own or without the financial incentive by these bleeding heart liberals that, like you said, are probably getting paid millions of dollars to fund Nazis and white supremacist groups, because naturally that's what you do when you fight against them in the court of law, is create the problem yourselves. I don't know. They've got to be held accountable. Should be thrown under the jail. They should be put on the Spirit deportation flight, the Spirit Island. That's how we should deal with them. They can rule over Spirit Island, maybe make a low-functioning society like Australia is in the present day. But we'll get on to the good news segment. So today we're looking at Matthew 3:13 through 3:17. This is the story of the baptism of Jesus. It says, "Then Jesus came to came from Galilee to the Jordan to be baptized by John. But John tried to deter him, saying, 'I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me?' Jesus replied, 'Let it be so now. It is proper for us to do this to fulfill all righteousness.' Then John consented. As soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up out of the water. At that moment, heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and lighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, 'This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased.'" In this, Jesus sets an example for us as Christians, that we are to be baptized, that when you are raised out of the water, that heaven is open to you. And when you do so, you become God's son, who he loves, who he is pleased by. I think it's very important to realize that Jesus himself was baptized. He committed no sins his entire life, but yet he still chose to be baptized as the way into heaven. I think that's very telling for what you should do as a Christian. You need to become baptized, and through that action, the door to heaven is open to you. Obviously, there are steps before. There is accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, accepting that he died on the cross, rose for your sins 3 days later, repenting. But there's also the step of baptism, the ritual in which the door to heaven is open to you. So if you're a Christian and you've accepted Jesus into your life, but you've never been baptized, you haven't taken that step of public profession, you should make it known to the public and allow people to see into your life that you have accepted Christ, and it can help influence others. But not only to influence others, but so that you have that symbol where you're raised from the water and your gateway to heaven is now open through doing so. I think there's a lot of power in that. I still remember the day I was baptized. Friends and family right up front, friends and family in the balcony, the water, a little bit got up my nose, but there's no worries there. It all came out eventually, guys, I promise. It'll be fine. They don't drown you. It's really quick, but it's a powerful symbol, not just to yourself, but to others, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And that you have submitted to God publicly, submitted to Jesus, that you are his follower, and symbolizing to yourself that you've been raised to walk a new life, a Christian life, one that tells others of the glories of Jesus. So I think that's very important. I think it was a very important story to share out of the Bible. I believe, what was it, Matthew 3:13 through 3:17, if you want to look through that yourself, and the stories surrounding it. But if you want to find that, Matthew 3:13, 3:17. But that's all we have for the good news today. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Make sure you're dropping a like, whether that be on YouTube, Rumble, can't like on Kick, but make sure you're following, sharing the show, share it with your friends, your family, maybe your boss, just depends on the relationship with him or her, maybe. I'm not saying to do that. It may get you into some weird HR questions, but, share it with somebody. I'd really appreciate that. I most appreciate you guys that stick around every day to the end. You guys help me with the algorithm. You help me grow the channel, especially not just in the algorithm, but sharing it as well. Yeah, thank you guys for that. Thank you guys for sticking around today. Noticed quite a few of you guys come through Rumble, so that's all we have. We should be back tomorrow at 4:45 Eastern time. Hopefully I'm on time. Did really bad about that today. The camera's doing the thing again. It always does that at this point of the day. What can I do about that? Not much, but maybe as we get into the summer, the sun won't come down until later, and it'll work a little bit better. But until then, this is what we get to deal with. You get Shadow Sam giving you the news, which is, from what I can tell, kind of horrifying, but it is what it is. It is what it is. You're driving. Focus on the road. Don't focus on what I look like right now. That's all we have for the day. I'll be back at 4:45 tomorrow. Like I said, hopefully I'll do a little bit of diving into the staff, I guess I should say, of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and maybe a little bit more into this new victim of the UFFO, or the UFFO the WFF, no, the UFO conspiracy of people missing and dying because of some knowledge of UFOs. I'll try and look into that in this guy's role a little bit more. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow if it's a slow news day. But until then, to my people on the East Coast, I hope you get home safe. To my people further west, I hope you finish up your workday strong and get home safe as well. I'll talk to you guys very soon.